willing to do us great harm. But the stage that was set prior to 9/11 was in many ways set by our government, not only with the foreign policy and the blowback theory, but the fact that security was already a government function. The government was in charge of checking us out. And they had rules. Don't ever resist a hijacker, and don't ever have a gun, even with a pilot, on an airplane. So it sort of sets the stage, you know, whatever. Now, if you were a private airline and you had that threat, you had the liability, and the government wasn't going to provide you security and guarantee it for you, you might have thought, well, you know, somebody might break in and into a cockpit and give us trouble, and you could devise your own safety mechanisms. But let me tell you, for personal experience, because I have to fly on airplanes a whole lot, I don't have any confidence in the TSA, the Department of Homeland Security, taking care of it. I've thought a lot about foreign policy over the years, and it is a big issue. It is a big issue. The issue of liberty is the key issue, and monetary policy is important. But foreign policy today is very, very important. And unfortunately, it is bipartisan. I mean, that is one area. I can get a dozen or two Democrats and maybe a dozen or so Republicans to start talking about non-intervention. Oh, that sounds terrible. That sounds like you're in isolation. It's not isolationism just to bring our troops and weapons and, you know, all that military home. Isolation is when you have walls around, you won't trade with people. A free society will allow you to spend your money the way you want. If you want to buy foreign products, you should be allowed to buy foreign products, and you should be able to travel where you want to go. That is not isolationism, but that's what they would like to paint it as. But free trade is one thing that I believe is very helpful. I think we should have been trading with Cuba a long time ago. Castro wouldn't have lasted if they would have seen more American products instead of saying, no, you can't go in and trade with Cuba. We do better, even though I think it's still dangerous with China. We're doing a lot better with China than when I was in high school because we were fighting the Korean War. You know, and now at least they depend on us because we provide a market for them and we buy their goods. And that's there's a lot of shortcomings there, but it has to do with the monetary problems with us issuing the reserve currency. But anyway, I think that trade is very helpful. But on the foreign policy, we have just gone off the board on that. We now have, some people estimate it could be 900 bases overseas, 130 countries. And they say, oh, we don't have an empire. Well, what is it? It's not an empire. Because we have troops everywhere, and we don't have any money. So the country looked, and they elected last time somebody they thought would be less militant, would end the war in Iraq and, you know, start bringing troops home, this sort of thing. So what do we have? Another president that doubles the size of the military in Afghanistan. The Iraq war is far from over, in my opinion, and expanding the drone bombing of Pakistan. I mean, why are you and I responsible morally and financially to be dropping bombs by the CIA? By what right? Where did this all come from? That a military operation on bombing a foreign country is run by the CIA. I wonder what the military and how the military and the CIA get together on it. But they lost these things out of D.C., you know, with all this technology. And guess what? Sometimes innocent people die when they do this. But financially, this is coming to an end. We spend $1.2 trillion a year on our foreign policy and our foreign operations. And we could spend a lot less and be a lot safer and do some significant cutting into our debt. For those who say, well, you're all wrong because Iraq was a tremendous success. You know, we have transferred them into a great democracy. You know, that's another thing that bugs me. A few other things bug me too. Well, but here we go. They say we have to go over there to spread democracy. Spread democracy through a gun. Go over there and insist these countries have elections. So, and then if there's a dictator that'll do our bidding, like in many countries, some countries that follow Sharia law, like Saudi Arabia, they're our best budget. This happens accidentally, I think, but they have oil in their country, you know, and then we tolerate it. Then all of a sudden, people finally look like they're rising up in the Middle East and in the Mediterranean saying, enough, we want to get rid of some of these guys. And so, for humanitarian reasons, what do? We expand the Bush doctrine of preventive war. You know, you're supposed to start the war before they started on us. I mean, we're in the fun. Why do we put up with it? But now we do it for humanitarian reasons. And there was no, I mean, there's a mess of it, there's no doubt. And like last night on TV, he said, you mean you would just let the people suffer? The dictator said he's going to go and kill these people? I said, you know, under the circumstances, yes, I don't have the authority. I think before we think we can solve all of the problems over there, we ought to solve the problems here in our economy. Are we protecting our civil liberties? I would say if you are concerned about your civil liberties and you want to do something, make sure you support the candidates who want to get rid of the Patriot Act. And of course, during the last campaign, there was a lot of criticism about what was going on with military tribunals and torture and assassination, but it's all continuing. Now, the assassination program can be used according to public policy stated against American citizens. Well, these are bad guys. Well, yeah, they may be a bad guy, but you're setting a precedent. What if someday there's somebody in Washington thinks we're bad guys? So we don't want to ever give up the rule of law and the process so that it can't be held, you know, without habeas corpus. But we're doing that. And so we have little respect for civil liberties. But there has been erosion. I think since the 9/11 and the Patriot Act, all these things have made it much worse. But even before that, there has been attacks. Well, for decades on, there's been a vicious attack on all citizens through our IRS regulations. And I think we put up with that. I mean, we're considered guilty until we prove ourselves innocent. That's not part of the Constitution. And then also, we have put up way too long with our loss of civil liberties when it comes to this war on drugs. The war on drugs doesn't solve that. Back in the old days, and it didn't work very well. But you know what? Back in 1919, I guess it was, they wanted to have prohibition of alcohol because there were some bad things happening when people drank alcohol. So they wanted to prohibit it. So what did they do? They amended the Constitution. Can you imagine what it would be like today if somebody said, oh, I don't want you guys smoking marijuana cigarettes, so let's go write a constitutional amendment to make sure nobody smokes marijuana. I mean, there's so little respect. You know, one thing that's interesting that's happening, I think it's very positive, and that has to do with nullification. Anybody ever hear about nullification? Pundits on the TV, they'll say, oh, that's that radical left-wing stuff that we just totally, the right-wing stuff that we just totally disagree with, you know, your states' rights people. That's a real negative term. But you know what? There are state laws written in California and other states that says that sick people can use marijuana when they're sick and dying because some people really find it can help. So they write a state law that says that. But the feds come in and they overrule the state law and they will put sick people in jail for using marijuana because it helps them. I would say nullification there, left and right ought to support that position.